I gotta ask, Kip, who's the little figure in the corner of your screen there?
Okay, so
Below
let me
BB.
see if I can. This guy or this guy?
That guy, but now I want to know both because I didn't notice the other one.
Okay, so this guy is Gort. Gort is the robot from the 1950s science fiction film, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Cool.
So yeah, I like that movie. It's a lot of fun. So in Seattle, we've got the science fiction museum, I think they call it, right down in the Seattle Center. And so they've got like all this really great science fiction memorabilia. And I picked up Gort in the gift shop one day. So that was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And then this bobblehead, this is actually me, but from a long time ago when I had hair.
That's awesome.
You are here. I feel like I should say this because Shelby said it already, but you're in pre-show banter. We've got Kip Boyle with us today. And Kip's going to talk all about how to get your dream job in the cybersecurity world. I feel like I did that already, but would definitely appreciate the talk because everybody out there needs lots of tips and hints and encouragement, right? There are great jobs out there for people in cybersecurity, and we are in demand, folks. If you have some decent cybersecurity skills, my God, there's a lot of employers out there looking for you. So it's going to be a great talk, I'm sure, Kip. It's good to have you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's good to be here. I live in Seattle, and it's a typical middle of November Seattle day. Yeah, gray skies, rain, moderate temperature. It's just typical, but I'm from here, so I was born into it, and it's just fine. I make my own weather, so it's perfectly fine.
So, Joffaroo, the Outback Joffaroo, as we like to call him, you got a class. I'm so excited about your upcoming class. You want to chat about it a little bit? Tell us what it's all about.
I do. I'm going to shamelessly plug this thing, but I'm really excited about it. Actually, I was doing some more authorship today on it, and like I'm like, wow, that's going in a really cool direction. And I'm like, okay, now I'm getting even more excited about it. So, to the point, the class is named Enterprise Threat Actor Emulation. No, I totally screwed that up. What did I call this class?
Enterprise Attacker Emulation.
There we go. Enterprise Attacker Emulation and C2 Implant Development. I couldn't. I'm terrible at coming up with titles for things, so I asked John, and John came up with that. And it's great, John. It's really great, but we're going to rebrand it at some point because it's a little bit unwieldy, I think. But anyway, what is it about? What I'm going to be talking about in my class is basically a lot of C2 implant development, predominantly, right? It's going to be a lot of how do you, in today's world, in the world of sophisticated antivirus, sophisticated endpoint defense and response, how do we actually, as penetration testers, how are we able to actually establish command and control? How are we able to actually successfully evade some defenses? What are different techniques in different programming languages that we can do that with, right? And I'm actually going to be focusing in on 3 different programming languages. I'm going to do a fair amount of C# and .NET, and then we're going to talk pretty much about what we can do with Golang as well. And Golang is a very high performance language that was developed by Google. It's kind of like the successor of the C and C++ language. And we're also going to talk about Python because I've had a long history of programming in Python and have a lot of experience in that area. And the other really exciting thing about the class is, as part of doing this, I'm going to have us experiment and work with a command and control channel framework that I have developed, and I'm going to make available to all my students as a teaching and learning tool that goes along with this class, as well as moving everybody towards the ability to work with various shell code generated from other different frameworks, such as Cobalt Strike, such as Metasploit, for example, and utilize those shellcode samples inside these other programming languages to achieve evasion and successful C2 implants. So really, really cool stuff. Really kind of advanced. You won't need to be a programmer. I'm going to give you lots and lots of code. If you have familiarity with programming concepts, if you've scripted before in things like Bash and Python, perhaps, or God forbid, Perl, and even worse, God forbid, Ruby. I'm opinionated on some scripting languages. That familiarity will be really good and really useful for you. And so, having a conceptual idea of the logical foundations of functional programming and or object-oriented programming will be useful for you in this class, but not necessarily required. So I'm just super excited. The format's going to be 4 days, 4 hours each day. So a really lightweight kind of format, right? Because this is a lot of heavy, dense material. So if I beat you up and make your ears bleed more than 4 hours in a day, that might be bad, right? We need to give you a breath at the end of each day. And frankly, it's kind of what I've been doing at Black Hills for the last couple of years is developing some pretty sophisticated stuff for use in some of our engagements. Now, I'm not gonna give away the entire shop. Okay, we do have some things we hold back for ourselves, but I'm going to give you lots of useful skills. At least I hope so. So come along, hit the registration page, which Velda, I hope, will make available right now magically. Velda, are we allowed to mention any of the charitable side of this? Do you want to speak to that?
You know what, Joff? I would love that. Do you want to chat about it, or do you want to take the lead?
Well, I'll try to do it justice, but just correct me when I screw it up. Okay, how about that? So, I believe the number is 10%. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Of the total proceeds from this class are going to charity, and the focus for us is on supporting underrepresented populations in cybersecurity. When you look at the demographics today, the most underrepresented population in cybersecurity is women. That will not be necessarily the sole focus over time. If it changes, we will adapt and change accordingly. But that is our intent. So we do have a charitable side of this, and that makes me like 10 times more excited, because especially with 2020 being as hard as it has been for all of us, for me being able personally to give back and actually support underrepresented populations in the cybersecurity field, it's a dream come true. So if you come to my class, you will be helping me make that dream come true, and I really appreciate it.
And I'm just going to add, we are always looking for people to join our Annie Oakley's group. We're in the process. I feel like it's growing feet finally after all this time, which is really cool. And it's, we want to help. That's our mission here, is to help. We love that. And we want to help you. We want to help you in the industry. We're breaking barriers every day with our training, with John's Pay What You Want. We keep our pricing low so people, so it's affordable for you to get education and get the knowledge you need. So, my mind is like, because it's just so much going on over here. It's a snowball. And
I'm so excited we can do it. And we're hoping to obviously boost the attendance at any of our training courses to support that. Of course, that's not the only intent. We do want to be able to teach you good stuff as well. But I'm just so excited that we're able to do that. And, Velda and our group with Content Community have done such good work at Black Hills to try to make that possible. And we're sort of coming into this period of time when it's really starting to take off. So it is so exciting, Velda. Just to be a part of the whole thing. I know I sound like we're sounding like a big echo chamber here, but it really is. It just gets me going, because it's like we're finally able to do stuff where we can give back and support some folks that really need some support. whether it's coming out of college, whether it's accelerating their careers currently. There's a lot of really good stuff that can come from this, and we're hoping to continue it.
All right. So everybody, it's great to be here. Thanks for taking some of your time, which, I mean, we all have more to do than we have time to do. So I just want to acknowledge that I know you could do a lot of different things, but you're here, and I'm really grateful. And I hope that when we're done today, that you'll feel like it was worth your time. So I call this presentation Play to Win, Getting Your Dream Cybersecurity Job, because what you're going to see as I go through it is I want to encourage people to leverage the skills that they already have, doing things that they already enjoy, and put those to work for you as you're going out there doing something that's really, really hard. I mean, getting a job can be super difficult if you're not set up for success. And so that's what I want to do today is I want to get you set up for success. And again, my name's Kip Boyle, and I've been working in cybersecurity since 1992, which of course, is a long time ago. And we didn't call it cybersecurity then. That kind of label's sort of been foisted on us. And I resisted that label for years because I just thought, oh, what a bunch of Hollywood hype. I can't believe it. But now I embrace it. And I've been working as a chief information security officer since 2003. And at this point in my career, I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've hired dozens of them to work in cybersecurity, work on my teams. And so just by sitting in this presentation today, you're going to be a much stronger candidate when you resume job searching or when you begin job searching, because I'm going to share some tips that I know are helpful because I've shared them with other people, and I know other folks have had really good success with this insight. Now, the insight that I've got to share with you really comes from a hiring manager's perspective. And I think that's super important because there's a lot of people on the internet talking about and trying to be sincerely helpful about, how can you break into cybersecurity? And a lot of the information that they're sharing is very helpful. But really, the person who is making the decision about whether you get that job or not is a hiring manager. And I've had people come up to me for years and say, hey, how do I get into cybersecurity? And eventually I figured, well, I should probably point them to somebody who's doing a really great job of explaining it. And I went out on the internet to look for hiring managers who were talking about it, and I didn't find any. And so that led me to create this course and to do other things to help people actually get into this career field. I really like working in cybersecurity, and I feel very fortunate that I've been able to get into it. So I want to help other people too. Now, what I've noticed is that most people put a ton of energy into acquiring hard skills. And you definitely need hard skills. There's no doubt about that, because hiring managers expect you to produce results, right? So there's a clear connection there. But what I also find is that there's a whole other dimension to this that people don't really recognize or acknowledge, or they're only partly aware of it. And you really need to do more if you want to succeed. And so the way I think about it is you want to make yourself irresistible to hiring managers, right? And that's what I'm going to help you do today. I was going to help you get into the mind of a typical hiring manager and help you understand what it is they're looking for so you can figure out how you can deliver that, all right? What I really want for you, right, is I want you to have multiple job offers. I want hiring managers to be fighting to get you on their team, right? And I want you to just, be struggling with trying to decide which of these fantastic offers, that you're going to accept. So if you can do this, then if you can make yourself irresistible, then hiring managers will absolutely bend over backwards to get you on their team. So I want to start with this idea here, which is to know thyself, right? So this is an ancient Greek idea, and it's hard to believe something so old can still be so relevant in our day and age, but it absolutely is. And you can see over the door here, it's written in Latin, to know thyself. And I just thought it'd be fun if I just asked you guys, do you know what movie this picture's from? Interesting little screen grab here. So it's Neo, right? In the first Matrix movie, which I really enjoy. And he's in the Oracle's apartment, and the Oracle is trying to clue him into the idea that, you really need to know who you are in order to fulfill your purpose. So now I want to share with you something that I don't run around sharing all the time, but I'm going to share it with you because I've got a purpose in my mind, right? I want to help you. So I actually have a lot of perfectionistic tendencies, and I don't tell you that to humble brag, and I'm not ashamed to tell you that, because being a perfectionist or having perfectionistic tendencies can be a real strength when you're working, but it can also be a real hindrance. It can really get in the way, and it's definitely gotten in my way at different times in my career. But I'm telling you this because you need to know yourself, and that's a huge secret for long-term success on the job. And I'm going to use myself as an example today as I share this information with you. So I'll come back to this idea of being a perfectionist. But here's another screen cap, and I don't know if you guys recognize this one, but I'm going to take a sip of water while you take a look at it. And this one's probably a lot easier to guess. And if you don't know, it's the Black Gate into Mordor in the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I love that movie. I enjoyed the books. And when I started thinking about how to help people with this, this was what came into my mind, is I thought getting into cybersecurity can probably feel like you're making a frontal assault on the Black Gate, right? Which, if you've watched the movie or you read the books, like, that's a suicide mission, right? It doesn't really work. It only works, when they open the gate and come out. So I've identified 4 blockers to getting your dream cybersecurity job. And today what I want to do is I'm going to name each one of them, and then I'm going to tell you how you can hack through or around each one of them. And I'm going to tell you that from a hiring manager's point of view. So the first blocker is you don't know the title of your dream job. And this, you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't get it. Like, I want to be a pen tester. There you go. There's my job title. And I hear people say that a lot. I want to be a pen tester, or I want to do red team or whatever. But the truth is that's really not enough. You really have to be very, very clear on the job title that you want from an employer's point of view. And you also need to know what type of a company you would like to work for, what kind of organization you'd like to work for, because with the same job title, but in different industries, and sometimes just in different companies within the same industry, your work experience is going to be very different. So if you're a network penetration tester at Amazon, your work is going to be very different than the same job title working at Bank of America. It just is. And if you know yourself, then it'll be easier for you to figure out, should I accept the Amazon job or should I accept the Bank of America job? And even whether you should even be applying to the bank or to the high-tech company, right? So knowing your job title is going to open up a whole lot of opportunity for you to understand how you can get that job, all right? So the hack here is you want to be really thoughtful about the job that you choose. And I want to remind you that I want you to be an irresistible candidate when you're getting in front of hiring managers. And so if you choose a great job in the right industry that's a good fit for you, that's playing to your strengths, then that's going to set you up for success. That's really where I want you to be. And I'm going to give you a couple of very specific suggestions here in a minute. But first, I just want to make a comment about these stairs. These are pretty cool stairs, and I've never been to them, but I found this photo on the internet, and I read up a little bit about it. And apparently, these are in China. These super steep stairs that are carved into the side of a mountain. But I'm showing them to you because I figured if I'm going to talk to you about the Black Gate, of Mordor, then I also need to show you the hidden stairs, right, around the back that'll let you get around the gate so that you can actually get where you want to go without making a frontal assault, okay? So to help you with this first blocker, I've made you this mind map. It's a cybersecurity job mind map. And so what I want you to do is I want you to use this to zero in on the job and the type of employer that's going to be a great fit for you. Now, I know on the screen right now, this is a total eye test, and most people are not going to be able to to read this thing. So I'm going to tell you how to get your own copy in just a moment. But the way you read this is you start in the upper right-hand corner, and you just kind of sweep down the right-hand side of this mind map. Then you go across the bottom, and then you go up the left-hand side. And as you do that, you're actually going to, on the right-hand side, you're going to see all the different types of jobs that are available and the different paths that you might take to get to those jobs. And on the left side, I've actually broken out critical skills and also different types of employers, right? So this is a really great, map that'll show you the lay of the land, and it's just going to show you all these different options. And as you look through this mind map, I want you to be thinking about, what's my aptitude? We'll talk about aptitude in a moment. What are my goals, and how do I like to work? Because some environments are super fast paced. And if you're a person who likes a laid back environment, that's probably not a good choice for you. And you can find out a lot about this actually before you even apply to an organization, if you just do a little bit of homework. So if you want to get that mind map, here's where you go. So we've got a Twitter page, and there's a graphical version in high resolution. So just go out to our Twitter page and get a copy. Just go out to Twitter to CyberPathMaker. And, this is in the slides that I dropped into the slides channel. You can screenshot it now if you want. I'll leave it on the screen for a moment if you want to screenshot it. And then you can go out there and you can retrieve this thing, and you can blow it up really big on your monitor, and you can actually go through the whole thing. Now, this is still part of my tip, right, for how to get around the first blocker, which is you don't know your job title, and you don't know, what's a great organization for you to work at. So the next resource that I want to make sure that you're aware of is a website where you can do a lot of market research about which jobs are in demand and where they are. So this is just a screen grab of cyberseek.org. And this is a fantastic website. And it's so useful that I'm actually surprised that there's a lot of people I talk to that don't even know that this exists. And so, it probably needs better marketing. But I'm telling you about it now. Now, there's two main functions on this site, which is going to be super helpful. So once you know what job you want by title, and once you have an idea of what organization you'd like to work in, you can go to this website and you can vet that, right? By looking at, for example, the map on the left-hand side. When you click into that, that's a heat map, and it's going to show you the supply and the demand of cybersecurity jobs in the United States. And by the way, I've looked for a tool like this for other countries in the world. I haven't found one yet. If you know of one, please tell me, because I would love to point people to a map like this for other parts of the world. Now, on the right-hand side, there's a second function that this site provides, which is a career path map. And so you can kind of see a little bit there where it's got some bubbles and it's got some lines, kind of looks like a mind map or a data flow diagram. And you get in there, and what it's going to show you is some jobs, and it's going to show you how, from a career perspective, right? What are the feeder roles for the jobs that you might want? Because one thing people really struggle with when they say, hey, I want to get into cybersecurity, is they don't really understand kind of the career progression. And another thing that they struggle with is they think that there are entry-level cybersecurity jobs. And the truth is there aren't that many entry-level cybersecurity jobs, because if you're going to secure something, you really need to understand it first. And so depending on what job it is that you'd like, you're going to have to do a lot of study and learning. You probably know this already. And one of the best ways to study and to learn is to actually get into a feeder job that will let you learn while you get paid and will prepare you. And so by going to the career pathway here, you can learn what some of the common, entry-level roles are that aren't dedicated cybersecurity, but that will get you where you want to go. So this is a fantastic website. Screen grab this, or take a look at the slide when you pull it from the Discord channel. Now, a great cybersecurity job is one that, what did I say, fits your aptitude, fits your goals, and fits the way you like to work. Now, some people are really clear about how they like to work, and some people are not as clear. So if you're not as clear, there's a really easy way to get clear, and that's to get yourself a DISC personality profile. And so on the screen here, you can actually see right across the page, right? You can see DISC, and these are just 4 different dimensions of the kinds of situations and the context in which you do your work. And you can get a DISC profile for yourself super, super easy. You just, go to your favorite search engine, put in DISC profile, free, right? Use those search terms. And there are many websites that will give you a free, quick test, and it'll provide some results. Now, you can also pay like $20 or more, and you can get a much more thorough result. But I would start with the free ones, and then if you're really curious and you want to go deeper, then maybe pay $20 for one that's a little more thorough. But this is just so helpful. It gives you such a clear understanding of your natural orientation towards work. And I use it in the hiring process. I ask candidates to go get a DISC profile and share it with me, not because I'm using it to either qualify or disqualify somebody for a job, but because I want to have a conversation with them about, what the working conditions are for the job that they're searching for. And I can't tell you how many times I've had really good conversations with job candidates where they didn't understand that, that they liked to work in an environment, where things are very laid back, but the job that I had was actually not a very laid back job. And I think that when people, get these kinds of mismatches when they go to work, it creates a lot of trouble, right, for themselves, because they go home totally worn out and unhappy. And as a hiring manager, I don't want to see that either, because it affects the quality of their work. It's not good for them personally. So I like to use this as a way to just help people understand this fit. So important. And so you may not, you may work with a hiring manager that doesn't even bring this up. But I suggest that you bring it up for yourself and then talk with them, about it. Okay, so here we go. This is me using myself as an example for you. This is actually my DISC results, and so just like right away in this particular visualization, and I love visualization, so I went ahead and paid $20, I think it was, for a DISC profile that had this. But you can see that I'm a high C, right, in the lower left-hand corner. You can see I pretty much maxed that out. And that I'm a relatively low I, and you can see that in the upper right-hand corner. And then as far as DNS go, I kind of, strike the middle of the scale. Now, being a high or a low, that's not really a value judgment. That's just helping you understand, where you are in the scale. But if you look at this diagram, I think it's pretty easy to see that I'm a task-oriented introvert. So, that's where I'm at my best. That's where I'm getting energy. That's where I'm loving my work. And so a job that lets me work that way is going to set me up for success. Now, let's go back to my confession that I have perfectionistic tendencies, right? And you can see that clear as day on here, right? Because my C score is so high. But what I know that this is telling me is that I like a lot of structure in my work, and I like a clear path to victory. Like I really enjoy knowing from my supervisor, what is the definition of victory? What can I do to help the team win? When that's clear for me, then I love it. And I tend to thrive. I tend to do really well. And what I've also found out about myself is that if I don't have that on the job, I have a tendency to go and make the structure that I need and figure out a goal for myself. Now, sometimes that works really well if I see the goal clearly and I create a structure that's working for that organization. But there's been times in my life where I missed the mark, and I made a lot of structure that worked for Kip, but I didn't make that structure work for other people, and it became a real problem for other people on my team. And so I've learned the hard way that if I don't have enough structure, that I work with my supervisor in order to build a structure that isn't just right for Kip, but it's actually right for the other people that I work with, right? So this is an important part of finding a job that's going to work for me, but is also going to create a lot of value for my employer. So it's a relationship, all right? The relationship between you and your employer, they have things they want from you, and you should not be bashful about making sure that you get the things that you need, and that includes a work environment that fits you. Okay, so there you go. There's the first blocker. Now, let's talk about the second blocker, which is a lack of skills. So the first blocker, not that many people seem to think about that. The second blocker, everybody seems to think about, right? And there's some skills that you probably already know that you don't possess that you would like to have. Like maybe you don't really understand how TCP/IP works yet, or maybe you've just downloaded the latest, Kali Linux distribution, and you're going to start, tearing into it to teach yourself how all these tools work, whatever it is. So I'm sure that you're working really hard on identifying the skills that you don't have, and then getting the ones, getting those. But there's probably other skills that you need, and you're just not even aware of that yet. And so there could be some hidden gaps. And so this blocker is about gaps that you can't see. And so I want to talk to you about how you can discover what those gaps are, so that you can figure out how to either close them or pick a different job, one that's not going to require you to close such a big gap. Okay, water helps. Okay, so in step one, if you've done a good job of choosing the right job within an industry that's going to play to your strengths, then you're just not going to have to struggle so much. So as an example, if you hate coding or you don't like scripting, you're not now that interested in algorithms and staring at a computer all day, and you don't get energy by working alone, then this isn't going to work for you. This is a bad choice, and the gaps that you're going to have to close are going to be enormous and very difficult for you to close, because you're going to hate learning what you've got to learn in order to close your gaps. And probably you're sitting here right now and you're like, that would be so obvious, right? If I was going after a job that I didn't like. But I can't tell you how many times I encounter people who are doing exactly this, and they don't realize it, or they think, yeah, this is awkward and weird right now, but it's because I don't know I don't know these skills. I don't know how this job works. And so, I'm sure I'll love it, once I figure it out. Maybe, I don't know. I can't read people's minds, but I just know that this is something that you've got to be careful about, because if this describes you and you're going to get a job, you're not going to look irresistible to a hiring manager. So this really messes people over when they don't understand that this is what's going on inside of them. So, but let's assume that you've done a great job choosing a good position, choosing the right industry. Closing your gaps are not going to be probably that big of a nightmare for you. So I've got a simple checklist that I want to share with you about how you can discover what your gaps are, and then actually close them, and make sure you're closing the right gaps, because that's another thing I see sometimes. People are struggling to close gaps that aren't as important because they don't see more important gaps that they should be closing. So here's a great exercise for you. All right. So go ahead and choose 3 employers, all right, from an industry that you'd like to work in for the job that you want. And then go find job postings for those jobs with those types of employers, and study them. If you haven't already, really study them and look at what the requirements are, right? So do they want a college degree? Are there certifications that they need you to have? What about skills? What about experience, right? So gather all of this, put it in a matrix, get an Excel spreadsheet out or a Google sheet, whatever, and just start, doing the analysis, or sit down with somebody. Not everybody's an analyzer. I am. So of course I think about going to a spreadsheet, but maybe just sit down with a friend and just start going through these things and just asking yourself, what is it that they want versus what is it that I have? So just compare yourself to the profile and then write down those gaps. It's really important you write them down. Don't just keep them in your head. You have to write them down, because you might discover gaps that on first inspection, you're like, that's ridiculous. I don't need to close that gap. Or you might say, yeah, I totally got that covered. And so you assume that you're good, but write them down so you can keep reflecting on that list. And you might discover through feedback from going to interviews and not getting the job and going back to this list, you might discover, maybe I'm not as great of shape with this as I'd like to be. Okay. But let's say you know your gaps. Let's say you're super, super clear on what your gaps are. So now how are you going to close them? Well, again, it goes back to, what does the employer want? Do they want a college degree, a certification? Maybe a boot camp is going to be like an accelerated way for you to close these gaps. And real world experience is a great gap closer, right? A real world experience covers a lot of gaps. So I want to talk about certifications for a moment from a hiring manager's point of view, okay? This chart is amazing. And I've got the URL up there so you can go get it for yourself. And Paul Jeremy makes this, and he keeps it updated. And he helpfully provides the previous version, so you can always go back and see what it looked like. But he's trying to classify and rank all the available security certifications. And last time I pulled this chart down, there were 362 certifications, which is just mind-blowing. How can anybody keep track of this? And I think that's why Paul decided, hey, I'm going to see what I can do here. But what he's done is he's ranked them based on reputation, how difficult they are to get, and then the usefulness. Like, if you get it, does it translate into hard skills on the job? And so he's done this based on his own perception of how the worth of each one of these certifications. He's gotten feedback from a lot of people. But, when I went out there and I looked at it, whoops, slide malfunction. I looked at some of the feedback and I studied this thing and I thought, this is pretty cool, but I wouldn't call it a roadmap, because I don't see a lot of hiring managers having weighed in on this. And I think a lot of people go wrong when they look at something like this and they see that it says roadmap on it. And Paul's trying to be helpful, but they misunderstand that it's not literally a roadmap. You don't literally start at the bottom of the page and work your way up one certification after the next. You certainly can if you want to. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it or that you can't do it. But what I'm saying is that you may or may not need these things in order to get the job that you want. So again, I'm just reinforcing the idea that you need to go back to the job descriptions in order to find out how you should be spending your time acquiring certifications, all right? Because what you want a certification to do is a couple things. You want it to open up gates, right? So that you can get through the HR screening process, because these things are absolutely being used by the applicant tracking systems to screen people out so that a hiring manager never even sees your job application. So if you go get a certification that's not listed in the job description, even though you're well qualified and the certification you got might be even better, right, than the one that the employer's looking for, you're not going to make it through the screening. And I don't want that for you. Like, I want you to make it through the screening. So, but this is a common thing that people trip on. So I want to make sure you don't trip on it. So when you're just starting out, this CompTIA stack is actually really good. And I want you to think about like which one of these that you should be considering. So if you don't know how a computer works, then you should probably get an A+ certification. If you know how computers work, but you're not all that clear about how they talk to each other, the Network Plus is a good choice. And if you got all that stuff nailed down, but now you want to get the security piece layered on top, well, then that's the Security Plus, right? So think about where you're at. Think about what you need to learn, and don't just see these things as a test that you need to pass. Really see them as a way to learn what you don't know, because a lot of people get a lot of confidence from studying the material, internalizing it, and then getting the certification. It'll do both of those things for you, right? It'll make you smarter, and it'll open up those gates that the HR systems have in place in order to winnow down the quantity of applications that they get. And if you don't have real world experience right now, then you should be taking these certification exams, and you should be actually doing the things in a home laboratory. All right. So passing the test isn't your number one goal. Learning is your number one goal. All right. So what do I mean by this? You've probably heard people say before, like, hey, you need to build a home lab. They're right. That's absolutely the case. If you're pursuing a technical job, you need to build a home lab, because without actually getting into a $600 million data center like this one on the screen, you're going to have to simulate it as well as you possibly can. The great news is it's easier to simulate a real data center than it ever has been, and you can do it for not a lot of money. So these are the typical components that you want to make sure that's in your home lab. You can start super small. You can grow over time. I know that there's lots of great tutorials on YouTube. Black Hills Information Security has a great tutorial on how to build a home lab. So I'm not going to repeat that for you because I think there's some fantastic resources out there. But I just want to give you a couple of ideas. Virtualization is, I think, the ticket for most people, because you can put a lot of computers onto a single piece of hardware, build a closed TCP/IP network at home, and now you've got this really great test space for yourself, all in a single computer. And I can tell you, back in the day when I built my first home lab, I had an actual rack in my garage with spinning disks, and it was super noisy and really generated a lot of heat, popped our electricity bill up. You don't have to do that anymore. You might want to, but you don't have to. You can virtualize it on a really nice piece of hardware. You can grow it over time. But really what I encourage people who don't have a home lab yet to do is build a home lab in AWS or Azure, wherever you want, but build it in the cloud. And there's a free tier in AWS that you can use. And the reason why I suggest this is because this is really the trend. I do consulting work all the time. We've got a lot of customers that we work with, different sizes of customers. And what I'm seeing is that the smaller and the medium-sized companies that have started, say, in the last 5 years are largely cloud first with their computing, which means that their offices, when they have the chance to use them in the pandemic, you don't really get a chance to use your offices as much, but they don't really have much more than what you'd expect to see at a Starbucks. They have no servers on premises, or maybe they've got one, and everybody's got a laptop or some kind of a mobile device, and all the real computing power is in the cloud. And so that's really where things are going, and I think you should prepare yourself. Okay, so that's 2 blockers down, 2 blockers to go. Third blocker is you have to convince a hiring manager to take a chance on you. If you've never had a cybersecurity job before and you really want it, this is a huge hurdle, right, that you've got to get over. And maybe you've already been out there trying to convince people, hiring managers, to take a chance on you, and maybe it's been tough, right, to get them to do that. You've probably watched a lot of YouTube videos, you've read a lot of articles and so forth. You probably, maybe you got a university degree, or maybe you're in the middle of getting a university degree because, your perception is that if I have a degree, then, that's going to open up a door for me. And it might. But here's the thing, and this is like a huge part of what I want to share with you today. The one person that you really need to be paying attention to is the hiring manager. All the other folks that are out there with their podcasts and articles, if they're not hiring managers, they're sharing great information. I don't want to take away from that. But really, you need to get to know the hiring manager, because that's the person that's going to get you hired. And again, if you can figure out how to be irresistible in front of them, then they're going to bend over backwards. So here's my suggestion for how to hack this blocker. I got a couple things for you. And first, it comes down to being able to read their mind, right? And that just sounds like all metaphysical and weird. But actually, it's not that tough to read the hiring manager's mind, at least on a broad basis. And in the marketing and sales world, they do this all the time, actually. I don't know if you're familiar with an avatar, a customer avatar, but I have found that this is very powerful. And so I'm going to share this with you, okay? So I created for you this hiring manager avatar. And the way I did it is I just went on the internet and I took a typical sales and marketing avatar template, which is what this is. And so then I filled it out for myself. And then I talked to a lot of other hiring managers and I said, what on here is right? What on here needs to be better? And so this went through a few iterations, but here it is. I think it's on version 1.2. and study this, right? Because what I've created for you is a window into a typical hiring manager's mind. Don't make the mistake of thinking all hiring managers look like that friendly guy in the middle and thinks exactly, the way that this avatar describes, but it's pretty close. It's a great starting point. And by the way, the guy in the middle, his name's Wes Schreiner. He's my podcast co-host, and I like to put him on the avatar slide. I don't think he's too happy with it, but but he hasn't told me to take it off yet. Anyway, Wes is a really smart hiring manager, has tons of experience. And so if you want to check out our podcast, it's called Your Cyber Path. We're on YouTube or, whatever podcast player you use. I think we're in there. Now, if you want to get this, not in the slide deck or, by doing a screen capture, which you're welcome to do, but if you actually want me to send you the PDF of the full size hiring manager avatar, not a problem. Just shoot me an email. Here's my email address. Just send me a message and say, hey, I want the hiring manager avatar, and I'll send it right over to you. So again, you might want to screenshot this slide. It's kip@yourcyberpath.com. Now, what's a takeaway from that avatar that I shared with you, right? So a lot of information on there, but how do you boil that out and how do you make it succinct? Well, here's what I'll tell you. There's really two things that a hiring manager more than anything else wants from you, from people that they're interviewing, and it's these two things. Can you be useful on day one? Or, how few days could it take so that you can be useful right away? And do you have passion for the work? Now, let's explore each one of these a little bit. So why is it important that you be useful from day one? Well, because we have more work than we can possibly get done. We're slammed, right? And so that really works against everybody. It works against us as team leaders because we just don't have the time to invest mentoring people, coaching people, training people up, on-the-job training, apprenticeship, whatever you want to call it. It's really, really tough for us to do that in most circumstances. Some organizations, it's not as difficult. So I came up through the Air Force, and the Air Force will train people from zero if you have the right aptitude to do work in a cybersecurity role. But most private sector companies don't have that kind of ability to make that kind of an investment. So that's why this is such an important screen for job candidates. Now, how can you demonstrate that you can be useful on day one? Well, if you've got experience solving the problems that hiring manager needs to have solved, you should definitely be telling them about that experience wherever you got it from. Even if it's a transferable skill. In other words, you've never worked in cybersecurity before, but you've been a network admin. Well, start thinking about what have you done as a network admin that can transfer over. I mean, if you've ever flashed a firmware, then guess what? That's a transferable skill, because that's often how you deal with vulnerabilities is by flashing firmware or changing a configuration. So you can talk about things that you've done in previous jobs. Maybe you are volunteering with a local charity or a community group and helping them with their cybersecurity. I love seeing that in job candidates. Maybe you're contributing to an open source project like Metasploit or something. I love seeing that as well. So those are some ideas. Not every hiring manager is going to resonate with this. So if it doesn't work with everybody that you encounter, don't be surprised. But generally, it's useful. Now, how do you show passion? Well, any of those things that you would share to show that you're useful could be also a way for you to show that you have passion. But there's some other things too, like you could have the exact certification that they're looking for in their job description. That's one way to show them that you're paying attention to their job descriptions. Another way is that you could say, hey, I've been giving presentations at B-Sides. Right? These days, it would probably be a virtual presentation or, whatever venue you can, right? Maybe you're making YouTube videos and you're sharing what you know with people. I mean, that's what I'm doing right now, right? Is I'm sharing freely with, what I know to help you. And so if you can do that and then tell that to the hiring manager, I think that's going to really help make the case that you're passionate. maybe you're not a public speaker. Like maybe the idea of doing a public talk is just like, no, I'm not doing that. That's not me. You know, I'm a task-oriented introvert and I'm not going to get up in front of a big audience. Well, you can help run the conference from behind the scenes. And that's super helpful. And actually, you know, B-Sides or a local security conference like that is going to help you make good connections as well. So that's another reason that you might want to do that. And if you don't have, you know, anything else to mention, talk about your home lab. Talk about how you've learned how to use common cybersecurity tools that are relevant for the job that you want, and you know, and be able to be conversant about those tools, and know that you'll probably be asked to, you know, to really talk about them, how they work. Maybe draw on a virtual whiteboard or on a real whiteboard, you know, whenever we can actually get back into our offices. Okay, so that's blocker number 3. Let's wrap this up with blocker number 4, which is poor job hunting skills, especially in the COVID-19 economy. I see so many people not doing a very good job with this, so I really want to call it out, and I'm going to give you some very specific instructions on things you should be doing. Now, whether we're in a pandemic or not, the thing you don't want to do is just sign up for a daily job list that just kind of rolls into your inbox and just, you know, look it over once a day, shoot off a few, you know, quick job applications, and then get back to your video games. That's not a recipe for success. Okay, that's just a crapshoot. Maybe it works, maybe it won't, but I don't think that's really the best way to go about it. One of the problems is that by the time a job ends up on one of those big job boards, it's going stale. And some of the best jobs never make it to those big job boards. So you can do better than that, okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to hunt for your job, your dream job, like you're playing capture the flag, right? Think about, what is the goal that I'm going for here, and how can I get that goal? How can I get that job? So think about capture the flag or something like that, okay? Okay, so here's the shout out that I want to give to Jason Blanchard, right? So Jason has inspired me. I've gone to some live streams that he's done, and on the screen here, right, I've got kind of a screen capture of his LinkedIn profile page, and there's a URL where he does live streams on Twitch, and you can see the days and times that he does them. And I can't recommend highly enough that you drop in to one of Jason's live streams, because he taught me quite a few things, and I'm going to share a few of them with you in just a moment. And super, super helpful. His wife sits in often, and they're both really, really smart about job hunting and techniques. And he'll actually demonstrate with much greater detail the process that I'm about to show you right now. Okay, so screenshot this, or otherwise grab my slide deck and get this URL out of there, and go drop in on Jason. You will not regret the time that you spend on his live stream. And if you want him to help you search for a job right then and there, he will. So just ask him. Okay, so here's a 5-step approach for job hunting, right? This is where you're going to really lean in. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to be very specific about the job conditions that you want, right? And I've mentioned this multiple times, right? So do you want to work in an office? Some people do. Some people really like that. It's really good for them, helps them be productive, helps them get the energy that they need. You might want to be a remote worker. So know that about yourself. Do you want to travel for work? I loved it, traveling for work. There was a period in my time when I thought that was the greatest thing ever. And the idea of going to the same office every day was a total turnoff for me. So, maybe that's what you want to do. You want hard start and hard stop times. That works for a lot of people. Other people want a lot more flexibility, fast paced, slow paced work, whatever it is. Get super clear on that, all right? The second thing you're going to do is you're going to get into LinkedIn. If you hate LinkedIn, I'm sorry, but this is what you have to do. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you need a LinkedIn profile. Sorry, that's how hiring managers, work. This is a big, important tool for us, and we want you to be there, right? So that we can meet you. We can do a meetup on LinkedIn. But there are thousands of cybersecurity jobs on LinkedIn that you can search for, right? So there's a little jobs button at the top. It looks like a little briefcase. I've got it circled in red right up there. So click on that and then put in a job title. Another reason why you need to know your job title. So I put in SOC analyst and one day, and I got back 2,210 results. You're going to need to filter that down. That's too many results really to work with. So be thinking about, right, those job conditions, right? What industry do you want to work in? Do you know the employer by name? Filter by that. And whatever other criteria that you can. So get that list down to a manageable amount, maybe 200 jobs or something like that. Now, you need to study these jobs again, right? Here's the thing. A lot of hiring managers are putting job descriptions out that only a rainbow unicorn could satisfy to a 100% level. This is a mythical person who has every possible skill, lots of experience, and oh, by the way, works for very little money. This is a hiring manager's wish list, right? This is what they want for Christmas. They're probably not going to get it. They know that. And so what they're probably going to do is take the most qualified person that they can find within the amount of time that they have to do the hiring. And so the lesson for you is don't hold back. Like, just because you don't match 100% doesn't mean you shouldn't be applying. If you match as few as 50% of what they're looking for, you should be submitting a job application. All right. So I know a lot of people struggle with this, but I really want to encourage you. Sometimes it's a numbers game. The more you apply, the better your chance. All right, here's where it gets really interesting. Step number 4. You have to find some allies. You have to find somebody on the inside who can help you, all right? It is so powerful to have somebody inside your organization advocate for you, right? The place where you want to go to work. Every job that I've had since I left the Air Force, I have had an advocate in the organization that I wanted to work in. And that's always been the key for me. And so it's super powerful. Here's what you do. You just go on LinkedIn, you find that job posting that you're going to apply for. Now you're going to look for the company profile. And you may have to spend $25 a month to get LinkedIn Premium. I guarantee you it's worth it if that's what you need to do. But you're going to filter the list of people who work at that company. Think of LinkedIn as like a massive active directory for the world. It's really very, very cool for job seekers, right? So get a list of the people who work for that organization, winnow it down. You're looking for somebody, hopefully the actual person who posted that job or who supervises that group, or you're just looking for somebody who works in that group or works anywhere near that group. All right, so you're going to find some people who are close to the job that you want, and then you're going to connect with them. That's your goal, is you want to connect with them. And I don't mean send them a LinkedIn connection request per se, but let them know that you'd like to talk to them about this job, that you're curious to know more. You're not asking them for an interview. You're just saying, hey, the job description is really interesting. I really would like to talk to somebody who can help answer a few questions that I have. And so you're going to write a post on LinkedIn, and it's going to follow this format or something close to it, right? You can see I've got a very simple description here. You're going to say, hey, I'm looking for a job at this company. Make sure you put the @ sign. You're going to put the job title in there. Make sure you put the pound symbol, the hash mark, right? The hashtag. And then you're going to put the name of the person who posted the job or who works on that team. And then you're going to attach a resume to that post, which you can do, and make sure it's customized for that job and for that employer. And yeah, that takes a long time, but that's what you have to do. And then post it. And then if you're really into this, get a couple of people that you know to send them the URL for that post, get them to like it, and get them to say something positive about your ability to get work done. And what's going to happen is LinkedIn is going to send a notification to whoever you tag on that post. Now, if they're not active on LinkedIn, you may not get any results, and you may have to see if they're active on Twitter or another social media platform. But they may not respond. They may see it and they still may not respond. I can't make you any guarantees, but the more of this you do, the more likely it is that you're going to actually be able to strike up those conversations, and you might actually get the kind of advocate that would be super helpful for you as you go through the hiring process. So, a lot of people are saying, like, how do I get through the applicant tracking system, right? How do I make it past those hurdles? This is how you do it. Because if a hiring manager can kind of like dip their hand in the applicant tracking system and pull your resume out, winner, winner, chicken dinner. That's what you want. So this is a great way to try to go about doing that, and just be respectful. I think if you're just respectful and you're politely persistent, I think you're going to get some good results. Okay. So this is how you play to win. All right. So that's a wrap on what I came to share with you today, as far as like, this prepared material. But do we have time for a Q&A?
Kip, somebody on here said, I need to reach out to someone I met at a con, got a business card, just don't know how to go about it. Any suggestions for them?
Yeah. So if you've got a business card, hopefully they've handed that business card to you. All right. And what that means is that you're welcome to contact them. All right. Don't let the fact that it's a business card, sort of cause you to think of it as like a formal thing. Because I think that's going to get in the way, right? If you think of it as too formal of a reach out, right, then that's going to like get you maybe all frozen up. So don't think of it that way, but you should definitely follow up with them. They've given you permission if they handed you their card. And I think the best way to approach somebody is to just start small. Just like, what's something that you can ask that isn't going to feel too big when they receive it, but still gives you an opportunity to kind of open up a conversation with them, because that's what you really want. Is you want to create a conversation and you want to warm it up a little bit, right? So if there's a certain job that you're looking for, right, think about some useful information that you might ask for that's non-threatening. So for example, if you want a job where there's a lot of travel, then you might ask this person, hey, I'm looking for, I want to be a network penetration tester, and I just love the idea of traveling around a lot to do that kind of work. Do you know any companies that are that do that work that way? And that's a pretty non-threatening question, but also is useful for you, right? It gives you hopefully you're going to get some good information back. And then the person who gave you their card is, their reaction is probably going to be, oh, this is the kind of question that I can actually help with. So that's a good way to get things going.
Good
We
stuff.
got a lot of questions coming in now.
Okay, let's hear them.
Let's see. What if I've been in the IT security field, but not necessarily have the skills required on the job description, yet still have the drive to learn them? Should they still apply?
Well, there's a couple of thoughts there that I'll share with you. The first thought is, it never hurts to apply. All you're going to lose is some time. However, by making the application, it is going to be healthy for you, because you're going to go through this process of evaluating the job description, thinking about what they're looking for, and then also practicing the art of customizing a resume for that position. And so I don't think it's a waste of time to apply for those. And who knows, you might get invited to do like an informational interview, or actually get invited to an interview. And, we don't get enough practice interviewing. So there's been times when I've said, I just want practice interviewing, because, like I'm searching for a job for the first time in a while. And so what I did is I just applied at like a handful of places that I really didn't expect to get job offers from, simply because I wanted to start getting back into the game. So that's a thought that I would share. And the other thought that I would share is, think about those gaps, right, between what you know how to do and what that JD is looking for, what that job description is looking for. Think about those gaps, right? And then ask yourself, are those gaps too big for me to close in a reasonable amount of time? Maybe is there an interim, place that I can get myself to, so that I can actually advance my career as I work towards that ultimate position that I want? So there's a couple ideas. I hope that helps.
Related to that question, there's someone who commented that a lot of the so-called entry-level jobs still demand so much experience, and that's a problem for everybody. How do you go around that?
Well, so there's two things that I think are going to be helpful here. The first is, you have to recognize that entry level for cybersecurity doesn't mean entry level in the way that everybody else thinks about it, right? So like you could be an entry-level customer support person, and that means they don't really expect you to know much, right? Because it really is and this is not a very, the connotations of this term isn't very good, but it's a relatively low skill position, right? They don't expect you to have much when you show up. That definition and connotation of entry level really doesn't apply. And I think a good example is, let's say you want to be a 787 pilot. Well, there are entry-level 787 pilot jobs. The problem is you have to have like 5,000 hours of flight time as a pilot in a multi-engine airplane carrying passengers before you can apply for a job like that. And so that's, I think, a better mental model for what a common entry-level cybersecurity job, what the expectation is. So go out to the cyberseek.org website and you'll look at those career paths, and it'll show you what they call the feeder roles. So for a 787 pilot, a feeder role is you're flying those twin prop commuter planes, and then you graduate to a 737 or something like that, right? So there's a path that you go through in order to qualify, to be a jumbo pilot. And so I think that's what you need to be looking at is how, what does that path look like for me, and how can I go down that path? And ideally, how can I get paid as I go down that path? So I hope that helps.
I have a question here, if it's okay. Spencer G is asking, how would you go about trying to land your first job after getting your degree and not having IT job experience, previous IT job experience?
Yeah.
Some past military experience, but no resumeable IT experience.
I am so sorry to tell you that I see a lot of people in this situation. And I see people who have decided, I'm going to cross over into cybersecurity from wherever they are now. And I don't know why they do this exactly, but a lot of people think that, well, if I have a bachelor's degree, then I'll go and get a master's degree in cybersecurity, or I'll just get a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, and that will open up the doors for me. It doesn't. And I don't know why people don't understand that. As a general rule, that doesn't work. I know the dominant narrative in America is that if you get a college degree, that's your ticket to a good job. And that can be true in a lot of industries, but that's generally not the case for cyber. And it's tragedy because people have spent thousands of dollars and years of their lives doing that. And then they get into the workforce and it doesn't pan out the way they think it will. So my advice to you is try to focus, go get that mind map, because in that mind map, I actually talk about other jobs in cybersecurity that don't have IT intensive backgrounds, but will still get you into the career field. So for example, a project manager, we need a ton of people to manage cybersecurity projects or cybersecurity programs. If you're willing to go and work for, let's say, a vendor, well, gosh, they need people to do marketing and they need people to do sales. What about trainer? If you like to teach, there's lots of training jobs out there where the learning curve to become a trainer isn't actually all that steep. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's not quite as steep as trying to get a tech-heavy job where every day you're going to go in and do systems administration type work. So these are the ideas that I share with people who ask me that question.
Awesome.
I think we're starting to run out of time, Shelby. Is that correct? We've hit our hour mark.
Yeah, and I don't want to go over too much, but there is one more question I wanted Kip to answer, if that's okay.
Sure.
And that's if your only direct experience is with a home lab, how do you communicate that on your resume or in your cover letter?
So what I would do, okay, if I was going to receive your resume or cover letter because you're applying for a job on my team, I need you to share some details, right? Like, tell me about your lab. How did you build it? Why did you build it that way? What have you learned? What have you learned from your lab that you can bring to work? And how has working in your lab prepared you to solve real problems? So I'll give you an example. Maybe we run a vulnerability scanner every week, and that thing's constantly spitting out severity 5 and severity 4 vulnerabilities, and those things need to be taken care of, right? We need mitigations deployed on those. How has your home lab helped you understand that process so that when you show up on day one, it's not the first time you've ever seen that?
Awesome stuff, Kip. Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Okay.
Kip, is there a website where people can connect with you, or is there someplace you'd like to direct them? And will you stick around in the web or in the Discord and maybe answer some of the questions behind the scenes?
Yeah, I've blocked an hour of time starting now to hang around and do more Q&A. So I'm going to hang out and do that. And so, here's a couple of things that you could, if you want to go deeper, right? So Wes and I do the podcast. It's called Your Cyber Path, and you should go get it. You should watch it, subscribe to it, okay? Because we give away all kinds of information like this all the time. And we've been doing it since February. So we've got a lot of information out there for you. And then we actually have a class that we offer. It's actually a class plus an online group. And if you go to yourcyberpath.com, you can get on the wait list, because we only open it 4 times a year. And so you might want to get on the wait list, and we'll let you know when we're going to open it up again, so you could consider becoming a member. And so those are the 2 things that I suggest.
Outstanding. Kip, thank you so much for being with us today. We are so appreciative, and I know that the people who are on this webcast are also very appreciative. So on behalf of Wild West Hackin Fest, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.